Zonai devices are extremely useful in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, but they require a steady supply of energy to be powered. This is a compilation of 3 guide videos all structured to help players get the most out of Zonai devices. As usual, useful timestamps can be found in the video description. We will start off with the energy cell. Energy wells make up the batteries in your energy cell, which powers Zonai devices. You only start off with 1 battery, but can get a max amount of 16. The first 8 batteries are green, whereas the next set of 8 batteries are blue and overlap the first 8. The way you get more energy wells is by bringing crystallized charges to a crystal refinery. The most convenient one to reach is on the Great Sky Island right next to the Nichoya Shrine, but there is also one up on a large rock just outside the north entrance of Lookout Landing. The exchange rate is 100 crystallized charges for 1 energy well. That being said, 1 energy well only makes up a third of a whole battery, so to get all 15 additional batteries, we will need a total of 45 energy wells, or a whopping 4,500 crystallized charges. Fortunately, there are multiple ways to farm them. This next part is a quick introduction for anyone who hasn't yet gone into the depths, as all methods for getting batteries require going there. If you want to follow along the main quest with Joshua and Robbie, that will take you down there. Alternatively, you can just dive down through the Great Plateau North Chasm. It's dark, so bring along bright bloom seeds to provide light. You can also activate the nearby light route and those throughout the depths as a more permanent solution. From that chasm, I recommend first heading south to the Great Abandoned Central Mine. Along the way, you may spot shadow statues standing on top of stone pillars. They carry metal weapons that are untarnished by gloom, which can be very useful if you haven't yet built up an arsenal. Once you arrive at the Great Abandoned Central Mine, you will get the Autobuild ability, which is extremely useful for saving and recreating Ultra Hand builds. There is also a relatively easy boss fight that, if you complete it, will award you with 100 crystallized charges, enough to craft 1 energy well. Perhaps more important is that a forge construct will open up nearby, where you can exchange Zonaite for crystallized charges. The exchange rate is 3 regular Zonaite for 1 crystallized charge, or 3 large Zonaite for 20 crystallized charges. If you buy out the available stock, you can always refresh the Forge Construct's inventory by resting at a fireplace or sleeping overnight. All of this may lead you to ask how to get Zonaite. For that, we will need to further explore the depths. To do this, I highly recommend building a simple flying vehicle. Everything you'll need, 2 fans and a steering stick, is provided at the project site right next to the Great Plateau North Chasm. You can even use the nearby stake as a single post rack, just don't actually attach anything to it. If you do, then the flying machine in your auto build history will have a stake attached to it even if you remove it once the build is complete. Here, I want to shift gears for a moment and discuss 3 of the best flying vehicles, and we will begin with the smallest and most efficient. This simple flying machine requires just 2 fans and 1 steering stick, and it will be easier to assemble if we use a stake as a single post rack. Start by resting the steering stick on the stake upside down. Then attach a fan to the front of the steering stick first. It needs to be attached at a 45-degree angle with the air-blowing side facing towards the sky. The key is to make sure that the fan is centered on the steering stick, or else it won't fly straight. If you position yourself so that you can see the fan's spokes, they can be used to help center the connection point. Once you attach the fan, the whole project will probably fall off the rack, which is fine. Pick it up, turn it over, and rest it against the stake so that the front wheel is completely vertical. This makes it pretty easy to line up and attach the second fan to the back side of the steering stick. We want it to be parallel with the first fan, with the air-blowing side facing the same direction. Make sure the fan placement is good by testing if the vehicle flies relatively straight when the directional stick is in the neutral position. You may need to try a few times before you get a nicely balanced machine, so once you do, you'll want to save it as a favorite in Autobuild. This will allow you to recreate the flying machine anywhere if you have the Zonai devices or for just 9 Zonaite. This vehicle is great as it is strong at ascending, descending, and staying relatively level over long distances. It has good maneuverability, is light, and is very efficient when it comes to energy consumption at around 12.5 seconds of flight per battery. If you are exploring the depths, you can throw a giant bright bloom seat on the front to provide a portable light source. This machine is also great for transporting any Korok that needs to reach their friend. However, that is about the limit on how much weight it can reasonably carry. To carry heavier objects like shrine crystals, we need to take things to the next level. Using the first creation as a template, take out 2 more fans. Then attach them to the left and right sides of the rear fan, and that is all there is to it. Compared to the first machine, this one takes about 67% more energy, lasting around 7.5 seconds per battery. The trade-off is that it moves noticeably faster, has better stability, and can carry much more weight. Although it would never be necessary, I was able to carry 2 Koroks and a shrine crystal through the air on this machine and still maintain great control. The really nice thing about this machine is that when the directional stick is in the neutral position, it flies almost perfectly straight and maintains its altitude. However, the higher energy consumption means you will probably need at least 2 or 3 batteries, or half as much with full Zonaite armor, before you start getting practical use out of it. That just leaves the large flying machine. To make it, just take 2 more fans and attach one to each side of the front fan on the medium flying machine. This final creation has the highest energy consumption, lasting a little more than 5 seconds per battery. It is only marginally better than the medium flying machine in all categories except for lift, where it is the clear winner. The only reason I could see for using this over the medium flying machine is that this one may be more suited to be weaponized. I haven't really found a good way to do that yet, and the main reason why is that my world is now filled with silver and black tier enemies, and they are just too tough for Zonai devices like the beam emitter or even the cannon. It took a few minutes, but now we are finally ready to go get some crystallized charges. While roaming the depths, keep a lookout for boss type enemies. These commonly include Frox, Hinox, and Stalnox. Each one you defeat will reward you with 20 crystallized charges. In addition, all bosses in the depths respawn after every blood moon. So mark their locations on the map during your first encounter so you know where to find them. On my map, I have all depths bosses I've found marked with skull stamps. Most bosses are relatively straightforward, shoot them in the eye to stun, then beat them up. The most difficult ones for me are the Frox. After hitting them in the eye, you need to board their back and destroy the Zonaite deposits. Destroying all of them will defeat the Frox. You can also stun them by shooting or throwing bombs into their mouth when they try inhaling you. If you find yourself lacking the equipment to handle these bosses, I have a whole guide video on how to become overpowered, and you can find a link to it near the bottom of this video's description. You may occasionally bump into a giant circular stone platform that is seemingly empty. Specific temple bosses will show up at these platforms after being defeated in their respective temples. I won't spoil the actual fights, but know that defeating them at these platforms the first time will reward you with 100 crystallized charges, a whole energy cell. They also respawn every blood moon, but don't seem to reward any more charges on subsequent defeats. In addition to bosses, there are also Yiga camps. At every Yiga camp, there is a treasure room with a red seal on it. Find and defeat the Yiga clan member with the corresponding red seal to open the treasure room, where you will get a predetermined blueprint to use with Autobuild, along with 20 Crystallized Charges. Unlike bosses, you can only get Crystallized Charges from these camps the first time around. They are still pretty easy and worth doing whenever you see a new one. Finally, there are the hundreds of Zonaite deposit hotspots scattered throughout the depths. They can be a pretty good source of Zonaite, both regular and large. Large Zonaite are one of the best ways to get the Crystallized Charges, as 3 large Zonaite gets you 20 of them. You can bring Zonaite that you've gathered to any activated Forge construct in the depths to exchange for Crystallized Charges, and resting overnight at a stable or other bed will restock the construct's inventory. The one obstacle of these Zonaite hotspots is that they are often guarded by hostile enemies. A silver lining of this is that those enemies all drop Zonaite and often carry rock hammers, which are great for smashing through all of these Zonaite deposits. If you have Majora's Mask, you can use that to disguise yourself and discreetly collect the Zonaite from under the enemies' noses. As long as they are all humanoids and you don't accidentally hit any of them, they won't attack you. Getting Majora's Mask is fairly difficult, however, and this brings us to the final source of Crystallized Charges, which is my personal favorite, the floating Coliseum. With a flying vehicle, it is pretty easy to reach the Coliseum by flying northwest from the Great Abandoned Central Mine. Defeating the 5 Lynels inside is another matter entirely. However, that is the main subject of the guide video on how to get overpowered that I linked near the bottom of this video's description. The first time you complete this Coliseum, you are rewarded with Majora's Mask, which is very useful for farming Zonaite. In addition, all 5 Lynels respawn every blood moon, and there are multiple reasons why I like doing this Coliseum every time I can. First, each Lynel drops 20 Crystallized Charges. Once you get the proper equipment and technique to handle the Lynels, you can get through all 5 of them in about 5 minutes or less while expending minimal resources. The secret is that hitting Lynels while on their backs doesn't cause durability damage to the weapon you use, so you won't break your weapons defeating them like you do with other bosses. For just the 100 Crystallized Charges you get from it, I would say the Coliseum is worth it, but there is a lot more to it. The last 2 Lynels drop the best weapon fuse materials in the game and the best bows. In addition, all of the Lynels drop lots of arrows, a lot more than you need to take them down. Every time I've done this Coliseum, I came out of it with 50 to 100 more arrows than I went in with and quickly reached the 999 maximum. And last but not least, each Lynel drops around 3 to 4 Lynel hooves and will often drop Lynel guts. Lynel hooves are worth 50 rupees each on their own, but when 4 are mixed with a single critter, like a grasshopper, the resulting elixir is worth 363 rupees, whereas the sum of the elixir's parts would only be worth 202. That's an 80% increase in profit. The same goes for Lynel guts. They are normally worth 200 rupees each, or 800 for 4, but mixing them with 1 critter to make an elixir increases the sale price by 80% to 1,443 rupees. The key takeaway is that clearing the Coliseum regularly will make you enough money to buy basically anything you want or need. Also, if you have the travel medallions unlocked, you can put one outside of the Coliseum for easy return trips. Once you've rounded up enough Crystallized Charges, make your way back to the Crystal Refinery to acquire your new energy wells. The more you get, the easier exploration and acquisition of additional energy wells becomes. As a final note, once you get all 8 initial batteries, any additional energy wells will overlap the first 8 in the color blue instead of green, but otherwise function in the same way. In addition, once you've maxed out your energy cell, you can spend excess Crystallized Charges on specific Zonai devices of your choosing. And you can actually purchase big batteries, which are exceedingly rare to obtain from any other source. However, the construct will only sell Zonai devices that you've found in capsule form. I know of a guaranteed big battery capsule that is pretty easy to reach, and it is located in a chest on a tiny, low-floating island to the south of Elden Canyon's Skyview Tower. If you have the glide set, lots of stamina, or just bring along some stamina replenishing consumables, you'll be able to reach this island fairly easily from the Skyview Tower. The final part of this guide is going to be how to get the Zonaite Armor Set. With all pieces equipped, your energy cell duration is doubled, allowing you to power Zonai devices for twice as long. In addition, it has one of the highest defense stats of any armor set in the game, maxing out at a total of 84. The boots are the easiest to reach, so that's where we'll go to first. They are located in the sky mines floating high over the Rist Peninsula. To get there, we will start by using the Olri Mountain Skyview Tower. If it's your first time at this tower, you'll need to shoot down the nearby Arakuda and bring the terminal back to the tower. Once in the air, fly east towards the Sky Island with the roaming Frox construct. You should see a partially built Zonai machine on the square part of the island, and we can use this to reach our destination. There are a total of 6 batteries in this area, and we will distribute them as evenly as we can across the 4 corners of the flying machine. Afterwards, we'll take control and fly northeast towards the Sky Mines. Even if you only have the single starter battery in your energy cell, it should still last long enough to get you close enough to the Sky Islands that you can glide the rest of the way over. Once there, we will activate the shrine and interact with the Zonai Gate to activate the launchers. To start, reposition the first launcher so that it's aiming towards the 3rd island up, then launch up to it. Here, we'll need to aim the launcher so that it will throw one of the large stone cubes into the floating orb. This may take a few tries, but fortunately there are plenty of cubes lying around. You may want to save before moving on to the next step, as if it is done incorrectly, reverting to the last save will be the quickest way to try again. All that said, we will now use the launcher to get ourselves into the floating orb, and you'll want to wait until this next explanation before moving the cube. This orb is tricky. Once the cube is put on the pressure plate, the opening of the orb will quickly lower beyond the halfway point and trap us inside. Then it will start spinning horizontally, never coming back above the halfway point. Because of that, we want to be in the orb opening when the pressure plate is activated. To do this, use Ultra Hand to grab the cube and hold it over the pressure plate for a few seconds. Then, move it back towards the opening of the orb. Drop it and climb back up to the orb's opening. Finally, while standing in the opening, use recall to send the cube back through time. Once it's hovering over the pressure plate, cancel the recall, allowing the cube to fall onto the pressure plate. Try not to lose your footing as the orb's opening lowers, and leap back through it once it's on the bottom side. All that's left is to open the chest to get the Zonaite Shin guards. The second piece we will go for is the chest armor, which is hidden within Zonaite Forge Island. You will need to bring along a few Zonai fans or any other devices that will help you gain altitude and move horizontally through the sky. And if you haven't gotten any stamina vessel upgrades, you will need a stamina replenishing consumable or 2. To reach Zonaite Forge Island, we will start by using the Rebella Wetlands Skyview Tower in southeast Hyrule. To access this tower for the first time, you'll need to burn away the surrounding thorns. Once in the air, glide further east towards the scattered islands. We will be commandeering one of these floating platforms for our own use. Our first goal is to get vertical, and you can do this with fans, hot air balloons, or whatever else works for you. We will eventually need to move northwest towards the enormous floating tower, but height is the bigger priority. You want to be around an altitude of 1700 or higher when you near the island, as the floating platform will disappear, leaving you to glide the rest of the way over. After landing, move counterclockwise around the island to reach the Zonaite Gate, and interact with it to activate the forge. Next, use the fan's currents to ascend to the forge's apex. Once there, dive through the center towards the forge's interior, avoiding the laser grid as you go. You can activate the nearby shrine, but to get the armor, we will need to climb up the pillar behind it into a small nook. Finally, use Ascend to enter a secret compartment where the Zonaite Waistguard is waiting. The final piece of the set is located way up high on Lightcast Island. It is most easily reached from Rostbro Pass Skyview Tower, but that isn't the same as being easy to reach. You will want to bring along a few fans or rockets, and if you don't have at least 2 full batteries in your energy cell, be sure to bring along a few regular Zonaite charges or a single large Zonaite charge. In addition, this whole area is cold, so bring some cold resistant armor, spicy consumables, or fuse a ruby to a shield and equip it to provide some warmth. Burn or bypass the thorns near Rostbro Pass Skyview Tower, then use it to launch into the sky. From there, head northwest and land on one of the floating platforms. If you haven't done the main quest at Rito Village, there will be an active snowstorm reducing visibility. Once you've gotten to a floating platform, outfit it with some fans or hot air balloons and start rising into the sky. We will need to rise a far distance on this one, and it may take some time if you have a low battery capacity, but taking breaks to recharge is fine. You'll need to reach an altitude of around 1400 or higher, then reorient your fans and or rockets to move south towards the North Tabantha Sky Archipelago. Once again, the floating platform will disappear as we near our target, and if you don't have stamina upgrades, you'll need to glide efficiently to reach the center island. Once there, save the game in case things go sideways, then gather up the surrounding fans, rockets, and Zonai Wing to construct a flying machine. And if you have the other 2 pieces of Zonaite armor, now would be a good time to equip it. Place the beefed up wing on the launch rails and take flight, standing near the rear to give as much lift as possible. Even with the 2 pieces of Zonaite armor equipped, you will need around 2 full batteries of capacity in your energy cell. If you don't, you'll need to use some Zonaite charges or 1 large Zonaite charge to keep the fans powered long enough to reach the low gravity zone of the Tabantha Sky Archipelago. After making it to the low gravity zone, jump and glide towards the nearest sky island. Once there, first save the game, then fuse the 2 springs that are provided and use them to launch yourself further up. You should see a floating platform towards the southwest. Glide over to it and dispatch the construct, taking care to avoid hitting the rockets. Fuse the first rocket to the center of the platform facing straight up, and move the second rocket out of harm's way. Then hit only the first rocket for a vertical boost. Next, take the second rocket and angle it at 45 degrees. Fuse it to the center of the platform so that it is facing the large island towards the northeast, and activate it to get within jumping distance of our target. Finally, at Lightcast Island, it's a good idea to save before starting the puzzle. To begin, interact with the Zonai Gate to lower the water in the pond. Follow the beam of light down into the island and use a bomb or blunt weapon to clear away the rubble. The entire goal of this puzzle is to direct the beam of light through the dark cave with the provided Zonai mirrors. That being said, you can make the task a lot easier by lighting up the cave with bright bloom seeds. I also realized after already doing the puzzle that it would probably have been easier to line up the mirrors with Ultra Hand than the way I did it. In the final chamber, you'll need to defeat a soldier construct, then take its mirror shield. Use the shield to direct the beam of light into the gold hexagon sensor. After a few seconds of contact, the sensor will turn green and the room's walls will open up. Just above the sensor is a chest on a platform. Climb up to it to claim the Zonaite Helm. As mentioned before, each piece of the Zonaite set increases the duration of your energy cell, with the full set doubling it. In addition, upgrading all pieces to level 2 at a Great Fairy will provide a set bonus, which nearly doubles energy cell recharge speed. The only upgrade material that was difficult to find, at least for me, was the Captain Construct 1 horns, which you'll need 15 of in total. I've only found the Captain Construct ones to spawn consistently at 3 different locations, and they are all shrines. The first shrine is southeast of Terrytown, and I will not make a fool of myself trying to pronounce it. The second shrine is on Bravery Island in northern Hyrule, and the third shrine is on the West Hebra Sky Archipelago in northwest Hyrule. After completing these shrines for the first time, you can return about every 7 days of in-game time to get horns from the Captain 1 constructs. If you manage to gather enough Zonaite and construct horns to upgrade the Zonaite Armor Set all the way to max level, it will give you a total defense of 84. Feel free to ask questions or let me know what you thought of this compilation guide in the comments. If you want to see more great guides, you can head over to my channel, and if you're new, consider subscribing. You're helping me feed my cat. Her name's Marshmallow. Have a great day. If you're here today, have a great Monday and a great week. And as always, thanks for watching.